All right, people, V&V podcast, the boys are back. Episode again, I don't know what it is, boys. What are we, 64, 65?
Something like that, yeah.
Could be anything, could be nothing. Who even cares? It's the Liverpool episode. It's dedicated to them, which is, if you're not a Liverpool fan, I would turn off now. If you are a Liverpool fan, I would turn on immediately because it's going to be the next half an hour, 40 minutes about the glory days. Chris, Liverpool fan, welcome. I know you wanted to be on for a long, long time. The floor is yours. How does it feel, mate?
It still feels a bit surreal, if I'm being honest. I think it's been so long. Obviously, 30 years. I was, 6 the last time they lifted the title.
Yeah.
So if you look back on how long I've been watching football, there's been plenty of close calls last year in particular. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Brendan Rodgers time as well, which I think was, looking back on it now, seems a bit of a fluke season. But yeah, just feels amazing. I think with everything going on at the moment as well, though, in the world, it just seems like nothing's real, and you're just waiting for something to turn around and go, nah, it's just a bit of a joke, really. But there is some relief there as well. Obviously, when the season stopped, and the amount of message you can imagine I had, especially for Man United fans. With he was so close. Well, pretty much tied the league up. I think everyone could admit that, but nobody wanted to actually say, no, we're not giving Liverpool the title if the league can't start back up. Which, that would have summed up the last 30 years at least. And I came to a point, I even took FIFA off my PlayStation. I went, I've had enough of football. I don't want to hear about it anymore. But it just feels so good.
It would have been so 2020 for Liverpool to not win the league. In a way, I'm glad they have, just so we can have some sort of normalization again, because it's been just the most bizarre set of circumstances. I mean, if you're a Liverpool fan, I mean, it's a nice pick-me-up for 2020. If you're anybody else, then 2020 just got a whole lot worse, in fairness.
It was a funny one, wasn't it? Because other leagues, like big leagues around Europe, were all kind of doing different things. Like some leagues were ending, some were making teams champion, some were just voiding. So like when lockdown first happened, and like fans were teasing Liverpool fans, they're going to void the season, this is going to happen. And when other leagues started like not being consistent, you're like, oh shit, like what is actually going to happen? So obviously they won the league deservedly. So like you said, Chris, it was inevitable. It's been probably inevitable since maybe about Christmas time. Maybe just after that. So it just seems crazy that we're in June and they won the league. It just seems bizarre. Yeah. The fact that we've had like a 3-month break in between and come back to like obviously not having the fans there, has it like affected sort of the celebrations or made it maybe not quite as hyped as what it would have been maybe beforehand, you think? Or do you just not care and it's exactly the same?
It definitely has. It's definitely got that impact. It would have been great to, have won it in front of fans, of course, but it is what it is. And I think if you asked any Liverpool fan, they wouldn't care if they won it in an empty house or with a full crowd, just being, looking back over my school years and everything, the reign of Man United and, the Fergie years and everything else. Now it's just like, right, all that's gone. And, for me as well, it's also that Man United aren't anywhere near us. I would have liked to have, if Man United be Man City in a way.
Yeah, that's right.
You're battling Man United for the title, the same as we have over the years, and never come up on top. So it has got that little bit of feel of it as well. If, you know what, we're so far ahead of Man City, we're even further ahead of Man United. But I would like Man United to be a bit closer, just so we've got that rivalry, the same as you've had when United were winning all those leagues,
I guess can't be choosers, I guess. For the 30 years of hurt, that always makes me chuckle as a Newcastle fan. Just the three Champions Leagues, FA Cups, League Cups, 25 European campaigns, 30 years of hurt, it's over. Well done for getting the title. Who do you think the best player's been?
I'd actually open up as well. Like best player, but like who's the top 3 like most vital players to Liverpool as well this season? But like number 1 first.
I think number 1 for this season, if you look at this year, I would say you obviously got your Manes, your Salah who take normally the highlights, and Firmino. But for me, Jordan Henderson. You look back on not even that long ago, probably about 5-6 years ago, and he was almost gone from the club. And now you look at the turnaround in him, and Steven Gerrard was obviously a massive player to take over from as captain. He used to drive a lot of the games for Liverpool, and Jordan Henderson sort of, for me, he's not quite there, but he's definitely more influential than any player that we've had since Gerrard's left. And it's just his drive, his momentum. He sets the benchmark, and he sets the press. He sets the just everything that Liverpool are showing to get to the title at the moment, and the European Cup last year. And you got to remember, they only lost one game last year in the league. We've only lost one game this year already. We could lose a few more. It wouldn't surprise me if City turned us over next week. But you look over that sustained 2-year period, and that is some incredible, performances from to get to that level. So I put him at the top. Obviously, second, Trent Alexander-Arnold. His influence from right back is immense. For me, Cafu's probably the best right back I've ever seen. But if Alexander-Arnold carries on the way he is, I've never seen someone influence a game so much from right back. He's got 12 assists this season. He had, I think it was 11 or 12 last year. And let's not forget, he's a right back. You wouldn't see Gary Neville or anybody back in those sort of days.
Good luck seeing Gary Neville, do I? Yeah.
No, and they're a different player. Don't get me wrong, but he's just immense. And this season, you look at the centre half, Van Dijk obviously, and Alisson. It's a close call, but if you look back on when you signed those players, they just took us to the next level.
Yeah,
and for years and years, everyone was saying we need a keeper, and we probably got the best keeper in the world at the moment.
Yeah. Thing is, with Jordan Henderson, going back to him, he's never the type of player you would call like a Rolls Royce of a player, would he? He's more like a Dacia Sandero in terms of he's not easy on the eye. He's not one of those players that ever really gets the headlines because he's doing anything magical. I think the biggest compliment that you could really pay him is that spell that he missed a little bit earlier on in the season, where they had Liverpool's equivalent of a wobbler, not like other teams' wobblers, but he was missing for a series of games, and then you could see what they were missing. And I'm not I wouldn't say I'm a massive Jordan Henderson fan, and like I say, he doesn't do the standout things on the cameras, but the biggest compliment you can pay is that when he wasn't there, you were like, oh shit, yeah. If Henderson was here now, I don't think this would quite go the same way. And then Trent, like you said, he's basically like City's De Bruyne, but right back, because he's created that many chances. So yeah, I can't really argue with your picks too much. Maybe like Robertson, I was thinking of, but he's maybe not been quite as good as last season, but still right up there. But yeah, I would agree. I don't use spoon for those three.
Yeah, I agree. I think the catalyst for everything was Van Dijk. I think as soon as Van Dijk came, that changed the game. Alisson was just the icing on the cake. He was the extra bit needed, but Van Dijk is key to everything. I think he's phenomenal. And I genuinely don't think he gets the credit he deserves either. I think when you start to talk about Van Dijk, you have to now put him in the same brackets as the Ferdinands, the Vidic, the Terrys, the Campbells, because he's gone and done so much in the space of 2 years. And I think over the next few years, he'll do that as well. Going back to Trent, Chris, I wanted to ask you, what just generally, obviously doing a little bit of sort of Liverpool research over the past few days, it seems that Trent's future, maybe I'm wrong, is more in midfield, because is it Neco Williams or is it Nico Williams? How do you say it?
Nico Williams, Welsh boy.
Yeah, because obviously he's the next big sort of Welsh hope as well, and he's a phenomenal young talent. And a lot of people are saying that obviously in the way you would sort of continue his development is by pushing Trent into midfield. That would be really interesting to see Trent against your De Bruyne's and all them in midfield, because he can have a serious impact, a bit like Lahm did at Bayern Munich.
Yeah, and Steven Gerrard had Trent in his under 23s or under 19s coming through the academy, and he actually highlighted him as the next big thing in his autobiography. And the interesting thing is, you know, I've heard it said so many times, is like he gets so much space at right back.
Yeah.
Would he get that sort of time on the ball in the centre midfield, which may influence the way that he plays and his impact? But he was a midfielder in the young setup. Obviously, they've moved in. Klopp's seen something in him that could influence us from right back. We didn't really have a right back at the time. You know, he was switching between Klein, who was a bit inconsistent. Gomez had played there, but obviously he's proven he's better at centre half. You know, and it'll be interesting. So I think Nico Williams is a big prospect, and it's great for Welsh football as well, not just for Liverpool. To have a right back of Nico Williams coming through the standards is going to be really interesting. But yeah, you're right. It's going to be interesting to see how they can accommodate them both if needed. And they're both 19 and 20.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So you know, that's not a bad place to be. Coming back to Virgil van Dijk as well, you know, like you said, he doesn't get the credit, and he had the credit when he first signed, saying, yeah, he's a great player. 75 million is probably a bit much. When you're looking over it now, though, it's pennies.
Yes,
but also, I see it on the write-ups on Sky News, stuff like that, and people are now starting to say, oh, maybe people are too scared of him, especially after Richarlison came out last week and said, I've dribbled past him plenty of times. Okay, you can dribble past anybody. You're not going to, you know, it was that stat going around, wasn't there, last season where nobody could dribble past him. But even if you dribble past him, he's so quick, he's back you anyway. And it comes to that point where, but similar to a keeper, you look at a really consistent keeper and people start saying, oh, he's made one mistake there, A bit like De Gea's going through it at the moment, isn't he? And has been since probably the last couple of seasons. But you look back at De Gea and he is still a world-class goalkeeper. They're going to make mistakes. You can't be a robotic player and never make a mistake. It's about your consistency levels over the seasons. And you can't argue Van Dijk's been instrumental in the Liverpool defence.
I think with De Gea, I mean, at this stage, I mean, I know we're talking about Liverpool here predominantly, but on the subject of De Gea, I would liken the way his career is going to Joe Hart, and that is alarming. He was at a point the best goalkeeper in the world, possibly along with Manuel Neuer at a point. But Joe Hart was at a really good level for Man City, and he went through a season or two where he made mistake after mistake after mistake. He did it at the highest level for England against Wales, and he really just never recovered. And De Gea's going to have to recover. He won't get back to that level unless he has the mental strength to be able to get there. I think his career is done if he can't find that mental reserve. Forget ability. And also, coming back on your comparison, I couldn't let it go. Trent Alexander-Arnold being compared to Cafu is an interesting one for me. Because Trent, for me, I don't know if he'd be a central midfielder. He could be a winger. I could see him being a winger. But he can't defend that well. He will need to really improve. I've said this to James before. 19-year-olds are seldom, going to be amazing defenders, and they do have a lot of scope to learn. He's got the right people around him to be able to mould him into a really, really good right back. But for the moment, he doesn't show the type of defensive ability that people like, for example, Wan-Bissaka do. So it'll be a really, really interesting one to see how he develops, because you see in the big games, Trent, you could draw a comparison on Rashford or Martial against Trent, and Sterling against Wan-Bissaka, and there's a world of difference in the ability of one to handle the other. So I definitely think that there's a long way to go for Trent, and people shouldn't be blowing too much smoke up his arse. He is very, very good, and he is one of the main reasons Liverpool have been so successful this season. I'm not denying it. But just for the moment, people need to realise he is unfinished, and he can get better if people do mould him in the right way. Is it the right time to put him central midfielder, central defensive midfielder, right wing? I'm not sure. That's not for me to decide. Personally, I'd be looking at his defensive ability now, though.
Yeah. Do you know, you mentioned Wan-Bissaka. I think me and Becky discussed this previously. You combine Wan-Bissaka's defensive ability and Trent's attacking ability, you probably have the world's best right back. Me personally, having watched Wan-Bissaka, I would rather have Trent in my side, only because I know if Trent goes forward and you've got a decent defensive midfielder that can slot in just behind him, he's going to create something. And I saw Wan-Bissaka in the final third the other day, and honest to God, I was just watching. I was watching it like this because, like, what is this guy doing? Have you seen him in the final third? It is painful to watch Wan-Bissaka. I'm a United fan. I'm looking at this guy and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Thank fuck you can defend. Like, because it was painful. But going back to
for England, well, I mean, England have a problem. A real issue is that if we look at the right wing for England, then we might look at Jadon Sancho, someone perhaps is not going to help out defensively. You look at England's three defensive midfielders or central midfielders. You can talk about Jordan Henderson all you like, but he's not the Fabinho of the team. He is not the person who's going to help out all that defensively. Then you look at their centre halves in Maguire, Gomez, Stones, Tomori. They're not players that are really going to be able to cover a back line and lead. They're not players who are in the world's elite four defenders. So for England, I think none of us are denying that Trent will get into the team.
he has to get into the team.
But he's going to be too defensively exposed if he doesn't sort of learn quick.
He's still young.
Yeah, he's still young, definitely. And same can be said for Wan-Bissaka. And I think you've got to look at where Wan-Bissaka's come from. No, not to discredit Crystal Palace, but they're a totally different outfit to what Man United want to achieve. So it's probably the other way around. Whereas Trent is playing in a team that wants to go forward, and that's where his strengths are.
Yeah.
And he needs to learn the defensive side. And definitely this season, he's already proved from last season that's already getting better. Where Wan-Bissaka is the other way around. He's come through a team that are set up to defend. They're structured. So when he's in the final third spooner, like you were saying, he's probably not used to being that far up the pitch, because when he was playing for Palace, he's probably told to stop on the halfway line.
Yeah.
So, that's the mould that he's coming there. And coming back to what England's problem will be with Sancho or even Sterling, if he played out there, they're not defensive. You'd probably say that Trent's exposed to Liverpool at the moment as well, because Salah doesn't defend. He doesn't come back as much. But that's where Henderson, in his position where he plays, covers that side of the pitch, and even Ronaldo when he plays there. Yeah. So you've got to have that balance, and I think you are right. There's definitely a lot of stuff that Trent can learn. But he's 20 years of age. He's probably got another 12 years of top level football. That's a hell of a long time. And he's probably almost played 200 games in 2.5 seasons.
Yeah.
As a 20-year-old, that's not a bad start.
It goes to show as well. You'd hope that given that amount of games he's played, it's a good indicator to the fact that he may stay fit throughout his career. Obviously, if he was to suffer, for example, an ACL injury, that's the type of injury that would really ruin a career for a player like him, which is obviously good that he's able to stay fit and play that amount of games. That's just so important for Liverpool, who have, I'm sure you'd admit, a really woeful amount of right-back cover.
Yeah.
So we've mentioned like a lot of Liverpool's strengths and talked about a lot of their players, Chris. And so going forward now, we know that they're the best team in the world. Currently, they're world champions, Premier League champions, Champions League. So there's no doubt about that. But most people would say that every team has room to improve. So sort of going forward now, they're in a transfer window. Where do you sort of think, if anywhere, you could disagree, do you think that they need to strengthen most in order to sustain where they are? Because obviously, we'll come on to it in a second, but they are going to be challenged eventually, whether it be next season or the year after, because that's the Premier League, and that's what will happen. So what sort of areas do you think that they need to sort of get cover or even just upgrade the most?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because with everything COVID related at the moment, you just don't know what the other clubs are going to be able to do. Obviously, you've seen Chelsea spend some money, but then Chelsea couldn't spend money last year. So that's probably how they've been able to. So it'll be interesting to see, will the likes of Man City spend money if they're not going to be in Champions League football? You know, how much of Man United are going to be able to spend? Spurs, you know, you look at all that first of all. So you're right. But then you look at Liverpool's team and you're like, it's going to be hard to actually replace anybody who can better the team, just the way that they're playing. Because, you know, they are phenomenal at the moment. 25 points 3 seasons ago behind Man City, and now we're 23 points ahead of them this year. That swing in points is about, 48, something like that, I think I read this morning. So that's an incredible turnaround over 2 seasons. Not bearing in mind, it's against Man City, where a lot of people are saying they're the best team ever to be in the Premier League. So, you know, you've got that swing. But for me, cover, left back, definitely. I mean, you look at it now, James Milner plays there a lot. He can't go on forever. He's pushing 33, if not 33 already, but maybe a bit older. And a lot's been talked about, obviously, Timo Werner not going to Liverpool. But you look at it, and there's a couple of reasons, I think, why that didn't go through. £50 million, first of all, for somebody to sit on the bench, which is where he's going to be.
Yeah.
Does the player want to sit on the bench? You know, if you're Timo Werner, you know you're not going to probably play that much. You're probably going to have that Origi role where you probably make about 20 substitute appearances and 5 starts over the season. So you've got to weigh that up as well. So I think the best move for him was Chelsea, because they needed striker. Tammy Abraham, people could argue, had a good season, but he's not going to take them to that that they need to be at, you know.
What about?
I think Chelsea will strive. Like they will push on, especially if they can get one more signing in attacking. They're not terrible in defence, Chelsea. Interested in your take on Timo Werner there. I don't think that the individual player would add much, but I would be. People always say, don't they? Getting to the top is one thing. Staying there is a complete thing.
Now the only go on, sorry.
The record, I think that Man City will need to strengthen, because otherwise the gap's going to increase. Liverpool could keep that gap where they are just by being that good. City have a number of areas where they have been weak on, which they need to significantly invest in. You see Koulibaly, that could change the game completely for Man City. Their main problem has been defensive. If they could bring in a half-decent left-back in Koulibaly, then, you know, they're bang up and challenging again. But I would be surprised. I mean, I might be in a minority here, but I would be surprised if Firmino didn't really start to struggle next year.
You're in the minority with that one. Yeah, I don't buy that at all. Yeah, I think he's quality.
He's quality. Don't get me wrong, he's quality. But if you're looking at a team that is now the best, will the tactical model that Liverpool use, whereby Firmino doesn't chip in goals as a centre forward, work as effectively?
I think it will, yeah. I think it will. The only issue that Liverpool team has moving forward now is, when do they really peak or hit that peak, and can they maintain the hunger that they have? Because that's the issue moving forward that Trent is going to have. He's only 19, but by the time he's 24, will he have done it all? Will he need a new challenge somewhere else? I think that's the only issue they have, is that there's so much money in the Premier League now that a lot of these teams, you're never going to have a Fergie cycle where it's like you dominate for a decade. You're going to get 3, 4, maybe 5 seasons if you're lucky, and you need to capitalize on that. And Liverpool are about halfway through that now. So I'd be interested to see, from a hunger standpoint, how they maintain that.
With Liverpool again, in terms of possible upgrades, transfers, do you think, Wilson, that they could benefit? It might not be to the way they sort of play, because obviously their front three, you know, pretty much everything attacking comes to that front three, right? And it works. But sometimes I do feel like, even if it's just off the bench, that they could do with having almost like a number 10, you know, like a Coutinho from the past. Because behind the front three, you wouldn't exactly say that there's like a magician behind the front three. You know, Wijnaldum chips in with some really big goals, especially in the Champions League. But do you think that maybe having like a number 10, sort of like a David Silva, De Bruyne, Eriksen sort of player behind the front three could sort of take the burden off them when they're not forming.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's probably the reason we didn't win the league last year. We went through a spell where we dipped massively in form, and I think we only won 2 in 7 games, I think it was, between February, March time. And that impacted us massively because Man City obviously closed that gap after Christmas. And then it was neck to neck all the way through to the end. And we tried a little bit with Shaqiri, and in some games it worked. But Shaqiri at the end of the day cost us £13 million from Stoke. You know, he's not a David Silva, he's not a Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne type player. And that's, Man City play differently. Liverpool obviously got their own style as well. And our 3 midfielders, even though you look at the pass from Fabinho for Salah, it was inch perfect over the guy's head, Van Arnold or whatever his name was, on his chest, down. So they got that quality there, but you do need that little magician, like you said. Like, there's been links with Coutinho coming back. I can't see that ever happening. But
Firmino not become that man?
I think he loses it a bit because what you've got is Firmino set your press. He's the high man. He's the guy who links Salah and Mane up. And I think by dropping him in, which we have tried as well, we've tried to put him in behind the striker up front, and he loses the space that he gets. And I think that's the problem you've got, is by putting that number 10 in sometimes, it probably disrupts the 3 up front because you've got an extra man in their space. And it's finding that balance, but I do agree that there has been times where you just want that extra little bit of quality to come off the bench. You can find that little subtle pass. And, even Oxlade-Chamberlain's done it in the past, to be fair to him. He's come on, he's found a little pass through. But again, is he consistent enough to be able to say that, we don't need to cover that position?
Yeah. Well, like you see with United, and you're like, I know we play different again, but they brought Bruno Fernandes in. It shows how much difference a forward-thinking midfielder can do to a team. But yeah, like you say, it would be hard to obviously. I don't think you could put that number 10 in all the time because it would affect the way that you play. But if there was a way that you could get somebody that could sort of not play all season long, but come off the bench when games get tough, but then it's hard to get that quality of a player who's not going to play every week, isn't it, when he could go somewhere else. But yes, it's interesting. But I wanted to just draw some spotlights into like Liverpool and Klopp's sort of transfer signings over the last 5 years. It was 2015 Klopp came in, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I've got a list of obviously the signings that he's made, players that he's sold, and I think compared to other clubs, United are laughable their signings in comparison. Guardiola's been a bit, he's made predominantly good signings, but by my calculations, Liverpool have spent about £470 million since Klopp's arrival. Just run through some of the signings. Obviously, you've got Mane, 30 million, Karius, 5, Klavan, 4 million, Wijnaldum, 25, Salah, 40, Andy Robertson, 10, Oxlade-Chamberlain, 35, Van Dijk, 75, Keita, 52, Fabinho, 43, Shaqiri, 13, Alisson, 65, and obviously Minamino, I think it was 7 million. Like the majority of those signings, you look at what they've gone on to achieve for Liverpool Football Club. And I would actually wanted to test you on it as well, Chris, right? Jurgen Klopp's first ever Liverpool lineup in the league. How many of those players, or how many of that lineup do you think you could name of Klopp's first Liverpool lineup if you haven't already seen it?
I was actually reading about this yesterday. I know there's only 3 left, which is Milner, Origi, and Lallana.
Yeah. So
in goal was Mignolet.
Yeah.
Then you got Alberto Moreno left back.
Yeah.
Sacco. Was Lovren the other centre half? Or Skirtle?
Skirtle, yeah.
Skirtle. Milner obviously played. I remember him playing.
Yeah.
Lucas Leiva.
Yeah.
Now I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'll put you out your misery, right? So, Mignolet in goals, Moreno, Sacco, Skirtle and Klein in a 4, and then a 2 in front of them of Emery Chan and Lucas, and then 3 in front of that of Lallana on the right, Milner on the left, and Coutinho and Origi. Now, the transformation of that team in 5 years, obviously, they spent 470 million, but they've actually sold players to the value of 378 million. Obviously, Mignolet's gone, Ings, Coutinho was a large chunk of that, Benteke as well, Sacco. You can only praise their transfer activity compared to other clubs. You actually look at their actual spend of just over 90 million, which works at 18.5 million a season, which is lower than Watford and Bournemouth. When you actually look at the statistics, and you look at other teams around them, like United, the top spenders are City, 818 million, then Chelsea 650, United 611. Like their average spend per season is the lowest is Arsenal, which is 50 million. Everton 55 million. They spent 530 million, by the way, in 5 years, more than Liverpool. And then you've got United 76 million spend the season, and City 100 million. It's remarkable. I don't know if you want to chip in on that, boys, but I just when I actually looked at the numbers, it's just superb.
What's interesting for me is you go back to when Rodgers was there, and the amount of reporting there was about this transfer committee that they had. I remember when obviously Suarez went, and we went up and got Balotelli through the committee and committee decision, and you look at it now to who we were buying those seasons, and the amount of work goes in and transfers, scouting, and a lot of that has got to go to Michael Edwards as well, which Klopp bought in. His work is phenomenal. The money he even gets for players, like Jordan Ibe, we sold for 15, 20 million. He's now leaving Bournemouth at the end of the season on a free, having not done anything for them. So some of the money you look at there, not just coming in, but the deals that we're able to get from letting players go, which you would class as average, but for an incredible amount of income, has definitely helped towards that figure you mentioned with the net cost.
So with regards to those signings as well, I mean, it just goes to show, first of all, you recruit right rather than the big names. You need to recruit the players that fit more ideally into your team. You look at people like Robertson, who's a brilliant find. I don't know if they could find a right back, so they just promoted some of the academy with the correct qualities for the team. Also, it goes to show what can happen if you just don't focus on signing young English players. Because they're the ones that cost you the money. I think the main signing that they've done is Van Dijk. And let's be honest, if they'd have signed him out of the French league, he'd have cost them about £20 million. It's only because they signed him from a fellow Premier League club that they've spent that amount of money, which is where a lot of clubs are going wrong, I think. Signing from Premier League clubs as a big club is going to, you put a tax on yourself. I give you Harry Maguire as an example. And also then the same example can apply for an English tax as well. So whoever's doing the recruiting over at Liverpool knows that, and they're doing quite an astute job of it.
Yeah. And in I think it was 2010, wasn't it, Wilson, that the Fenway Sports Group and John W. Henry took over. Was it like Gillett and Hicks or whatever it was before that? Like, how much or do Liverpool fans owe sort of much to the new ownership that took over? Like, what changed under the new owners compared to the ones before that, which sort of led on to this? Was it?
I think, you look at the time with Gillett and Hicks, and Liverpool almost went into administration. And when you look at that now and you think, wow, that, a club that is the size of Liverpool almost going into administration is unthinkable. But I think they obviously had sport background. They own obviously the Red Sox. They made them very successful in baseball. Yeah, okay, it's a different country, different sport, but they obviously had background in turning clubs around. And I think the biggest change that they made which came as a shock at the time, was getting rid of Rodgers and being ruthful at that point because Klopp became available. And I was reading yesterday that Klopp actually got offered the Man United job before the Liverpool job, and his wife told him, "No, it's not for you. It's not the right fit."
Yeah.
And as soon as Liverpool came in, she said, "Yeah, that's the job you want." And you probably could thank his wife as much as you can thank the Fenway Group. But I think you just look around the club. You look at the appointments they made. Peter Moore as CEO, the stuff he's doing just to bring money in, sponsorship, the development of Anfield. The stuff that they're doing, not just allowing the transfers and Klopp to run the club, obviously, but everything goes with it. The change they've put into the club for 10 years and the turnover they're now creating is immense. It's and it's, you look at Man United, and I know the Man United fans go on about the Glazers and how much debt they put on the club and stuff like that. You don't see that with the Fenway Group. It's run as a business, of course it is, but it's run as a business. They want to be successful and to win trophies as well. I think a lot of clubs have suffered from that in the past. And one very close to home is Swansea. You look at them now, the owners just do not want to know about them. They reckon they got no money, but yet they were paying Wayne Rooney thousands of pounds to play for their DC United team. So you've got to have the right owners for any Premier League club, and you've got to have owners that want to be successful as well as make money these days, because it isn't what it used to be. They are businesses now,
Yeah. Do you know the perfect example that Liverpool are, and I think someone can really learn from them, is Arsenal? I look at Arsenal now, and Arsenal are exactly where Liverpool were in 2010. They're just a complete mess. And I think if they take the approach where they get rid of Stan Kroenke, they get in someone that, like Chris says, understands the game, has that balance where they want to win, but at the same time they go, okay, we'll make a bit of profit, but we understand winning then will equal profit, whereas not like, we'll get profit and just try and come fourth every year. So I think Arsenal can learn a lot from Liverpool. Going back to Arsenal, there was an interesting debate, Chris, on Twitter the other day. Piers Morgan, obviously Mr. Arsenal, he said that Liverpool wouldn't get near that Arsenal invincible side because they've lost a Premier League game. I found that strange because that Arsenal team, okay, yes, they were invincibles, but they never won a Champions League. They never got close to winning anything else. So how do you think that Liverpool team would stack up against an invincible side?
It'd be an incredible game, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Even just look at Henry against Van Dijk. That would be worth watching just on itself. You'd pay the coin just to see that, wouldn't you?
You would.
Yeah.
I think you look at the Arsenal team, and I think didn't they win? They drew a lot of games as well.
They did, yeah. They did.
Liverpool could go on this year to break records of what Man City are holding the most wins at the moment, most home wins. When I'm looking at it, Arsenal in mention in there. It's only Man City. They were a great team. Don't get me wrong. You look through their team, Vieira's, your Bergkamp, your Henry. They were a class act, and I think football has evolved since then as well.
Yeah.
And you can always say they were the best team at that time, but I think to go a season unbeaten now is some ask. And I don't know if that will ever get done again, just purely down to, people can beat anybody. And you've seen a bigger gulf, I think, in that season with some teams. You had your top four, obviously, and then it changed to your big six. And everybody else, just, you would beat them. But I think it's a lot tighter in the league now. And you look at the league, Man City and Liverpool, obviously, teams are on 49 points at the moment. That used to be the team that the relegation points used to be, didn't it? You used to have teams going, if we hit that 40, we're staying up. We've not that many games left now, 7 games left.
Yeah.
And you've still got Man United on 49 points, I think, something like roughly.
Yeah.
You compare that now, it's like, wow, hold on a second.
The thing is as well, it's so hard to compare teams from different generations, isn't it? Because the football's changed, and obviously we're just living in a fantasy because they've mentioned like some of the United teams in 99 and 08, the City team last couple of years, now the Liverpool team, Arsenal team. Like, we like to fantasize about it and match make, but the truth is like you can't play the Arsenal Invincible team against the Liverpool team now. It's just it's just never going to happen. But I want to ask you, all of you boys, really, Jurgen Klopp. You spoke a lot about him. How long do you reckon he'll stick around? Do you think he'll could have, like you said, Spooner earlier, if he ticks all the boxes, wins a couple of league titles, a couple of Champions Leagues, do you think he'll just up and get a new challenge anytime soon?
I think he's quite good in terms of honouring contracts. I think from what I read previously, he's the type of guy that he doesn't break a contract if he has it. But I think if he does go on to win 2-3 league titles or maybe another Champions League, he might get to the end of that contract and think, maybe it's time for a break, because it is emotionally draining. It's a mental drain as well as a physical drain. So I'd be interested to see. I don't think he'd leave Liverpool to go to another club. I think if he does leave, he'll take a break first and then maybe get a job with like Bayern Munich or someone.
What do you think, Reece?
He gets emotionally invested in teams, doesn't he? The only place I could see him going is back to Dortmund. I don't think that would be for quite a while. I think with the comparison of the teams, I think just to give my input on that, take the coaches out, or take Arsene Wenger and Klopp out, and I think the Invincibles win. Just because if you look at people in their individual positions, you'd have Arsenal's midfield over Liverpool's midfield. You'd probably take Henry over Firmino, for example. If you take people in their individual positions, I think there would be more Invincibles in there than there would be Liverpool players. But it's like James said, you can't compare them. Football evolves. You can ask Brazil of the 70s versus Liverpool now, and Liverpool now will probably win. Not that they're a better team, it's just football evolves. But like you said, you would pay the coin to see it.
Yeah. And just to sort of wrap up a couple of things I wanted to approach you all as well about sort of the remainder of this season and sort of going on to next season. What's your boys' predictions now for the top four as it'll finish now this season?
I just think as it is. I don't think it's going to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if anybody's going to get in that top four, it potentially could be United. But they still got some work to do. I'm not sure what their final games are like. But
what about Wolves? They're the same points.
Yeah, it would be great to see Wolves. I think they've had a fantastic season. And you've got to bear in mind, remember the old teams are in Europa League struggle? They're in Europa League and doing well. So, I think it would be great to see Wolves in there, but it's going to be tough for them to break in. I think you've got the teams who have always been in and around it and got the experience to get over the line. But coming back to Klopp as well, I think his contract's 2024. It'll be interesting, like Spooner said, if we go on and do a couple of more trophies, a couple of more leagues, I think he will probably leave. I think the lineup is inevitable for Gerrard to come back. Yeah. If it'll happen, I don't know. But that seems to be the very, very strong suggestion that's going to happen. I'd love to see Klopp take Germany. I'd love him to see him an international manager, because for me, international managers tend to be those boring people that sit on a bench.
Yeah.
And just for, to see somebody just inject that little bit more into international football would be great. But yeah, top four wise, Leicester obviously there. United could get there.
What I would say about Leicester is they seem to have gone off the boil a little bit. I know they've got that leeway, but if they go on a bad run, they could sort of get dragged in. For United, they are unbeaten and they are playing pretty well in the league. I think Chelsea's result against City was big for them, because if they'd have lost that, United would have been 2 points behind. They got easy games-ish on paper compared to other teams. They're not on any big sides now. So you think that they maybe could have tried and overtaken them. But yeah, back up to 5 points now with Chelsea's big result makes it tough. Obviously, they're going to need to lose to United and have to be nearly perfect. But just to finish up, Chris, who do you see Liverpool's biggest challenge coming from next year, if not maybe more than one team? Do you think it's City again?
Yeah, I think, you look at this year and definitely City. You can't shy away from that. I think Liverpool and Man City are still a long way ahead of the other teams at the moment.
Closing the gap?
They'll close the gap. I can see, Man United will close the gap. Chelsea will close the gap, but I think the gap is too big at the moment, and it comes back to what sort of transfer window these clubs can have. United are going to spend big. The indication of that for me is no. Otherwise, why would they still keep Ighalo for next year? That's a bit of a strange one for me. Keep it all right. Yeah, he's on loan. He's got Premier League experience, but is he really a striker that can take you into that title challenge team? Not for me. There's still doubts over Pogba. We've seen it before. Everybody was raving when he came on against Spurs, but we've seen it from Pogba before. He goes through a spell of a couple of games where he's world class and everybody thinks he's back in it, but then he just goes completely off the boil again. I was having a debate actually about Rashford with my mate last week, and I don't know what you guys think as United fans, but where is his best position? Because he just seems to be playing left and centre.
I know Reece isn't his biggest fan, and he'll probably come on to that. But to answer your question directly, I don't think he's quite clinical enough to be an out-and-out striker. So I prefer him on the wing, usually on the left. I don't know if you swung.
Yeah, I'm the same, bro. I don't think he's a number 9. I think he's better off coming from the left, a bit like Henry did at Arsenal. But Rashford's quality, he's a great player. But again, it's just consistency. That's what he needs to find.
Reece, do you think if Newcastle get the takeover next season, do you reckon they can be a surprise package for giving Liverpool a push?
Not next season. Maybe if they had a takeover, they could have a 3 or 4 year plan, but not next season, I don't.
We always tease them up about that.
There we are then, lads. Is there anything else for anything else? Or are we all Liverpooled out?
All Liverpooled out from my side.
All right then, lads. Okay, cool. We'll wrap it up. Chris, thanks for coming on, mate. We'll try and get you back on again when Liverpool win again next year. So we'll wrap it up there. Obviously, add us up on the social media platforms. We'll put Chris's @s in there as well for Twitter and IG as well. Usual jazz. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back next week, and we'll see you then, people. Take care. Ciao.